When the human soldier entered, the alien Empress remembered the past. "Human, so you're here." The throne room doors blew inward off their hinges, and a man walked through the smoke. He was bleeding from 3 places. His armor was cracked down the chest plate. One eye was swollen shut. He carried no weapon. His boots left red prints on the obsidian floor, each step a wet slap that echoed up through the cathedral-high ceiling of the Velthari imperial chamber. Empress Salith stood from her throne. Every guard in the room raised a pulse rifle. 30 barrels aimed at one human body, 30 fingers on 30 triggers. The targeting lasers made a constellation across his chest. Salith raised one hand. The guards held. She looked at the man. Really looked. Past the blood. Past the broken armor. Past the years. "Human," she said, and her voice did something it had not done in a decade. It cracked. "So you're here." The man stopped walking. He stood 12 paces from the throne. Blood pooled at his feet. He looked at her with his one good eye and said nothing. His name was Cole Brannick, Sergeant First Class, Terran Defense Corps, 7th Forward Division. The file said he was 34 years old. The file said he had been born in a town called Briar Creek. The file said he had a disciplinary record 9 pages long and a commendation record 11 pages longer. The file did not say what Salith remembered. She remembered a younger face, unbroken, a face that had laughed in a place where nothing should have been funny. She remembered the mud. She remembered the way he had pulled her from the wreckage of her own shuttle, his hands slick with alien blood he did not flinch from, and the way he had looked at her like she was just a person trapped under metal instead of the heir to 12 star systems. That was 10 years ago. The Battle of Rethan IV, a day the Velthari Empire preferred to forget. Salith preferred not to forget. That was her private rebellion. "Lower the weapons," she said. Her chief guard, a Velthari named Dren, turned his head sharply. "Empress, the human breached the outer wall. He has compromised 4 security rings. He should be executed where he stands." "Lower them." "He came alone, Empress. One human. Through 4 rings. Something is wrong." "I know what is wrong, Dren. Lower the weapons or I will lower you." The rifles dropped. Cole Brannick did not react. He had not flinched when they were aimed, and he did not relax when they fell. He stood the same way a telephone pole stands during a storm, part of the landscape, not going anywhere. "You look terrible," Salith said. "Been a long walk?" His voice was like gravel being poured into a bucket. "You walked through 4 security perimeters. Walked through 3, had to crawl through the 4th. Your ventilation system needs maintenance, by the way. The ducts on the eastern wing have a moisture problem." Salith almost smiled. Almost. She caught it the way you catch a sneeze in polite company. "Why are you here, Cole?" He reached into a pouch on his belt. Every guard flinched. He pulled out a data chip, small enough to sit on his thumbnail, and held it up between 2 fingers. "Because your war council is about to do something they cannot take back," he said. "And I think you know that." The chamber went quiet, the kind of quiet that has weight to it, the kind that presses on eardrums. Salith knew exactly what was on that chip. She had suspected for weeks. Her own admirals, working in encrypted channels they believed she could not access. Plans for a first strike against the Terran colony world of Hadley's Point. 14 million civilians. A planet that had no orbital defense grid because it was supposed to be protected by the treaty Salith herself had signed. The treaty she had signed because a bleeding human pulled her out of a fire once. And the universe had never quite looked the same after that. "How did you get that?" she asked. "Your intelligence network has a leak. My intelligence network does not leak. It does when the people in it think you're too soft on humans. The words landed like a hammer on glass. Dren looked at the floor. Two of the guards shifted their weight. Salith descended the 3 steps from her throne. Her robes trailed behind her, dark violet silk that whispered across the stone. She crossed the distance between them and stood close enough to see the details of his injuries. A gash above his left eye, held together with field adhesive. Cracked ribs, visible in the way he breathed. Burns on his hands where he had gripped something too hot. "You could have sent this through diplomatic channels," she said quietly. "Your diplomatic channels are compromised. Same people. You could have sent another soldier. Nobody else would have made it through. So you came alone, through hostile territory, through my defenses, bleeding, to hand me a data chip. Yes. That is the most human thing I have ever heard." Cole almost laughed. The laugh turned into a cough. The cough brought blood to his lips. He wiped it with the back of his hand. "Your people have a saying," he said. "Vethran sol kamin. The debt of breath cannot be paid in gold." Salith stared at him. "You learned Velthari. Had 10 years, picked up a few things." She took the data chip from his fingers. Her skin touched his. His hand was furnace hot, the way human hands always were, a biological fact that still unsettled her after a decade. She turned to Dren. "Summon the War Council. Every member. Now." Dren hesitated. "Now, Dren." He left. The guards followed. The doors closed, or tried to close, and they hung crooked on their broken hinges. Salith and Cole stood alone in the throne room. "You need medical attention," she said. "After?" "After what?" "After you tell me whether you're going to stop this?" She looked at the chip in her hand. Such a small thing. Such an ordinary thing. A piece of plastic and circuitry that held the evidence of betrayal and the blueprint for a massacre. "I will stop it," she said, "or I will burn my own council trying." Cole nodded once, and then his knees buckled. Salith caught him. His weight was enormous, dense and heavy in the way only humans were, packed with muscle and bone that evolved on a high-gravity world. She braced herself and held him upright with strength her advisors would have found unseemly for an empress. "Stay awake," she said. "Trying. Try harder. You do not get to walk through 4 security rings and then pass out on my floor. That would be embarrassing for both of us." He made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I have medical staff," she said. "They will treat you. They'll want to study me. They will treat you, or they will answer to me." She guided him to the steps of the throne and set him down. He sat heavily, his back against the carved stone, his head tipped back, his one good eye staring at the ceiling far above. "Nice ceiling," he said. "It is 800 years old. Older than my whole country." Salith stood over him. The data chip was warm in her palm. Her council was coming. Her admirals were coming. The men and women who had conspired to start a war behind her back were walking into her throne room because she had summoned them. And they did not yet know that she held their treason in her hand. She looked down at Cole Brannick, broken and bleeding on the steps of her throne. "You changed everything," she said. "You know that. Just delivered a chip. You know what I mean." He closed his one good eye, opened it. "Rethan IV was a long time ago," he said. "Not for me." The doors opened. Dren returned, followed by the first of the council members. Salith turned away from Cole and climbed back to her throne. She sat. She placed the data chip on the armrest where everyone could see it. The room filled with admirals and generals and strategic advisors. They wore their ceremonial armor, polished and gleaming. They looked at the bleeding human on the steps, and then at their Empress, and the temperature of the room dropped by several degrees. Salith smiled at them. It was not a warm smile. "Sit down," she said. "We have much to discuss." The council chamber branched off from the throne room through a set of reinforced doors that had not been blown off their hinges. The room was circular, with tiered seating surrounding a central holographic display table. On 12 seats for 12 council members. All 12 were occupied. Cole Brannock sat in a 13th chair, dragged in from a side room by a guard who looked like he would rather swallow his own tongue than assist a human. Cole sat with his elbows on his knees, breathing through his teeth. Blood had stopped dripping from his face, but the field adhesive was turning yellow at the edges. He needed real medical treatment. He was not going to mention it, so Empress Salith stood at the head of the table. She had not sat down. Standing was a choice. It meant she was not here to deliberate. She was here to pronounce. The data chip sat in the holographic reader. The display flickered to life and filled the room with light. Star charts, fleet positions, troop allocations, communication logs, dates and times, and authorization codes. Everything rendered in crisp blue light that painted the faces of 12 council members who had gone very, very still. This, Salith said, is the content of a data package recovered from a compromised node in our own intelligence network. It documents a coordinated plan, authorized without my knowledge, to execute a preemptive orbital bombardment of the Terran colony world designated Hadley's Point. She let the words settle. 14 million civilians, she continued. No military installations, no orbital defense grid. A planet protected by a treaty bearing my name and my seal. Admiral Vorath, and seated at the far end of the table, was the first to speak. He was old. His scales had gone pale with age, and his voice had the thin quality of someone accustomed to being listened to regardless of volume. The treaty, Vorath said, was a mistake. Clarify. The humans expand. They always expand. Every year, more colony worlds, more ships, more soldiers. Their population doubles every 40 standard cycles. They breed like a mathematical error. The treaty buys them time, and it does not buy us safety. Salith looked at him. You authorized fleet movements to attack a civilian world. I authorized a strategic preemptive action to neutralize a future staging ground. Children, Vorath. The colony has over 2 million children. They grow up to be soldiers. The room held its breath. Cole Brannock, from his chair in the corner, said nothing. He watched Vorath the way a cat watches a bird through glass. Who else? Salith asked. No one moved. She tapped the holographic display. Communication logs expanded. Names populated the screen. 3 more council members saw their own identifiers appear in glowing blue text. General Tessith, Admiral Kale, Strategic Advisor Mulreen. Tessith closed her eyes. Kyle straightened in his chair. Mulreen stared at the table's surface as if willing it to open and swallow her. 4 of my 12 council members, Salith said, conspiring to commit an act of war that would shatter a 10-year peace and guarantee the full military response of the Terran Defense Corps. Do you understand what that response would look like? Vorath spoke again. The humans are strong, Empress. They are not invincible. No, Salith said. They are not invincible. They are something worse. They are persistent. She moved to the display and pulled up a secondary file. Battle records. Not Velthari records, Terran ones. Engagements from the last war, before the treaty. colony defense actions where human forces had been outnumbered 8-1 and refused to retreat. Siege records where human soldiers ate boot leather and drank recycled coolant and held their positions for months. Medical reports showing humans who had sustained injuries that would kill any Velthari soldier twice over and who had continued fighting. "We had this war once," Salith said. "We won battles. We won campaigns. We destroyed their fleets and burned their outposts and pushed them back to their core systems. And they kept coming. Every time we thought we had broken them, they sent more. Different ships, different tactics, soldiers who had lost everything and fought like they had nothing left to lose because they did not. We spent 11 years trying to end them, and we could not." She turned to face the council. The treaty was not a mistake. The treaty was survival. Vorath leaned forward. "No, you signed that treaty because of him." He pointed one long finger at Cole. The room shifted. 11 pairs of Velthari eyes turned to the bleeding human in the corner chair. Cole looked up. His one good eye moved from face to face around the table, cataloging expressions the way a soldier catalogs terrain features. Threat assessment. He did it without thinking. "Is that true?" Kyle asked. His voice was softer than Vorath's, when he had the tone of someone who genuinely wanted to understand before committing to a position. "One human changed your mind about the entire war?" Salith did not answer immediately. She walked to the display and shut it down. The blue light died. The room was lit only by the ambient glow strips along the walls, casting everyone in pale white. "Let me tell you about Rethan 4, she said. "We know about Rethan 4. Vorath interrupted. "Not your shuttle was shot down during a diplomatic—" "You know the report. You do not know what happened." She clasped her hands behind her back. "My shuttle was hit by friendly fire. One of our own patrol ships misidentified my craft. I crashed in a contested zone between our forward line and a Terran infantry position. The shuttle's hull collapsed. I was pinned under a structural beam. My guards were dead. My pilot was dead. My communications were destroyed." She paused. "I was 23 years old. I was the crown heir to the Velthari Empire. And I was trapped in burning wreckage in the middle of a war zone, and no one was coming." She looked at Cole. Except him. Cole was studying the floor. A muscle in his jaw tightened. "A human sergeant," Salith continued, "from the enemy infantry line. He saw the crash. He did not know who I was. He did not know I was Velthari. And he did not know anything except that a ship had gone down, and someone inside might still be alive. He crossed open ground under fire. He dug through burning metal with his bare hands." She held up the data chip. "This man pulled me from the fire. He carried me 300 meters to cover. He applied field dressings to wounds he had never seen on a species he had barely encountered. He stayed with me for 9 hours until extraction arrived. He gave me his water. He gave me his rations. When a Velthari patrol finally found us, he surrendered without resistance, knowing full well he would likely be executed as a prisoner of war." "He was not executed," Vorath said flatly. "No. Because I ordered his release. Because I looked at the enemy my empire had taught me to hate. And I saw a man who had burned his hands to save a stranger." The silence in the room was complete. "I did not sign the treaty because of sentiment," Salith said. "I signed it because I understood something that you, Vorath, with all your strategic brilliance, have failed to grasp. The humans are not dangerous because they are strong. They are dangerous because they are capable of this. They will burn their hands for someone they have never met. They will cross open ground under fire to pull a stranger from a wreck. And if you murder 14 million of their civilians, and they will not stop until every Velthari world is ash. She placed the data chip on the table. You do not want that war. I promise you. Vorath stood. His chair scraped against the floor. You are compromised, Empress. This human has compromised you. Your judgment cannot be trusted where their species is concerned. Sit down. I will not. The Council has the authority to call a vote of no confidence. The Council has the authority I granted. Salith's voice dropped to something cold and flat. And 4 of you have just been revealed as conspirators planning an unauthorized act of war. You do not have authority. You have exposure. Vorath looked around the table. The other 8 council members would not meet his eyes. Whatever support he had counted on was evaporating in real time. You have 2 choices, Salith said. Resign your positions and submit to a formal inquiry, or force my hand and discover what an empress does when her own council threatens the survival of her empire. Tessith spoke first. I resign. Then Mulreen. I resign. Kyle looked at Vorath. Vorath looked at the table, at the data chip, at the bleeding human in the corner who had carried that chip through 4 security perimeters to place it here. This is not over, Vorath said. No, Salith agreed. It is not. But the attack on Hadley's Point is over. As of this moment, all fleet movements associated with this plan are recalled. Any ship that does not comply will be fired upon by Loyalist forces. Am I clear? 11 voices said yes. Vorath said nothing. He walked out of the chamber. Salith watched him go. Then she turned to Cole. He was still sitting in the corner. His face was gray. The blood loss was catching up to him, pulling him down into a place where willpower stopped being enough. Our medical team to the council chamber, Salith said into her communicator. Now. I can walk, Cole said. You cannot. I walked through 3. You crawled through the 4th. Your words. She crossed the room and crouched beside his chair. You delivered the chip. You stayed for the council session. The mission is done. Let someone help you. He looked at her. His one good eye was glassy, unfocused, fighting to stay open. Vorath is going to be a problem, he said. I know. He has support outside the council. I know. The fleet admirals in the outer systems, they agree with him. I know, Cole. So, what are you going to do? The medical team arrived. 2 Velthari medics and a stretcher. They hesitated at the sight of a human patient. Salith looked at them, and the hesitation ended. I am going to do what I have always done, she said, standing. The next necessary thing. They put him on the stretcher, and he was too heavy for the standard Velthari model, and the frame groaned under his weight. The medics carried him out with visible effort. Salith stood alone in the council chamber. 8 remaining council members watched her from their seats. We will reconvene in 12 hours, she said, with 4 new members of my choosing. Until then, no external communications, no fleet orders, no contact with the outer system admirals, and anyone who violates these conditions will be treated as a co-conspirator. She left the chamber. In the corridor outside, Dren was waiting. He fell into step beside her, his pulse rifle across his chest, his eyes scanning every shadow. The human, Dren said. He will live? He had better. Empress, may I speak freely? You always do. Vorath is right about one thing. The humans do expand. They are growing faster than any species in the galactic record. In 50 years, they will outnumber us 3 to 1. Salith kept walking. And in 50 years, she said, I intend for that to be an alliance, not a threat. Dren was quiet for a long time. That is ambitious, he said. I pulled an empire from a council of conspirators tonight, using evidence delivered by a bleeding human who walked alone through hostile territory because he believed I would do the right thing. She stopped walking and looked at Dren. Our ambition is all I have left. She continued down the corridor toward the medical wing. Behind her, the palace was waking up. Word was spreading. The council had been purged. The Empress had a human in her medical ward. The fleet recall orders were already transmitting. Somewhere in the outer systems, Admiral Vorath's allies were receiving those orders. Some would comply, some would not. The next crisis was already forming. Salith walked faster. Then the medical wing of the Imperial Palace was not designed for humans. The beds were too narrow. The diagnostic equipment calibrated for Velthari physiology threw error codes when pointed at human tissue. The lighting was tuned to a spectrum that made human skin look faintly blue. Cole Brannock lay on a bed that had been reinforced with metal bracing underneath, his legs hanging off the end by a good 6 inches. A Velthari medic named Torith was working on the gash above his eye with instruments designed for scales, not skin, and making quiet sounds of professional frustration. Your tissue is absurdly soft, Torith said. How do you survive being touched by anything? Practice, Cole said. Salith stood in the doorway. She had not slept. It had been 14 hours since the council session, and she had spent every one of them in her communications center, monitoring fleet movements across 17 star systems. The recall order had gone out. Most of the fleet had complied. 11 capital ships had returned to standard patrol routes. 6 cruiser groups had stood down from their staging positions near Terran space. 3 ships had not responded. The battlecruiser Korath and its 2 escort frigates, under the command of Admiral Hale, a known Vorath loyalist, had gone silent 12 hours ago, and their last known position was 6 hours from Hadley's Point at maximum speed. 6 hours. Salith had sent a message to the Terran ambassador. The ambassador had sent a message to Terran Defense Command. Terran Defense Command had dispatched a rapid response fleet from their nearest base. It was a race now. The Korath against the Terran response fleet. Whoever reached Hadley's Point first would determine whether 14 million people lived or died. How is he? Salith asked from the doorway. Torith looked up. He has 4 broken ribs, a fractured orbital bone, 2nd-degree burns on both hands, moderate blood loss, and what I believe humans call a concussion, though I am working from a medical database that may be outdated. Will he live? Humans are disturbingly durable. He will live. I'm right here, Cole said. You can ask me? Will you live? Salith asked, not already planning on it. She entered the room and pulled a chair beside the bed. The chair was too small for a human, but the right size for her. She sat and looked at him. 3 ships did not respond to the recall, she said. Cole's jaw tightened. The machine monitoring his heart rate showed a spike. The Korath? You know Admiral Hale? I know of him. Hardliner, old guard. Lost a son in the last war. He has gone dark. Our last position puts him within striking range of Hadley's Point in approximately 6 hours. I did the math when I saw the fleet positions on the data chip. Salith looked at him. You knew this might happen. I knew Vorath would not stop at a council vote. The chip showed the fleet positions. Hale was already moving before I reached your palace. Now the plan was always going to have a contingency. You came here knowing the attack might proceed regardless. I came here to give you a chance to stop the parts you could stop. The council, The broader fleet. Hale is one ship, one fanatic with 2 escorts. One ship is enough to burn a colony. Yes. They sat with that truth between them. Terran Defense has dispatched a response fleet, Salith said. From Crestfall Station. It is the nearest base. Crestfall is 8 hours from Hadley's Point. I know. So the Korath gets there first. By approximately 2 hours, yes. Cole tried to sit up. Torith pushed him back down with one hand. The colony, Cole said. Does it have any defense capability at all? A planetary militia, light arms, surface-to-air batteries designed for atmospheric threats, not orbital bombardment. 3 patrol corvettes with outdated weapon systems. 3 corvettes against a battlecruiser. Yes. Cole closed his one good eye. The monitor showed his heart rate climbing. There is one other option, Salith said. He opened his eye. I have a loyalist battle group currently positioned in the Sethran corridor, 12 hours from Hadley's Point under normal speed. But the Sethran corridor passes through the drift, and the drift has a navigational shortcut that is not on any official chart. Why not? Because it passes through an unstable region of compressed space that has a 1 in 4 chance of destroying any ship that attempts transit. 1 in 4. Those are the odds. You want to send your own ships through a death trap to stop your own renegade admiral from attacking a human colony. I want to give the order. The captain of that battle group will have to decide whether to follow it. Cole looked at her for a long time. Who commands the battle group? Captain Vaeth. She is young, she is loyal, and she lost her mother in the last war. Everyone lost someone in the last war. Yes, that is rather the point. Salith stood. She paced the small medical room, her robes brushing against equipment that beeped in protest. If I give this order, and Vaeth takes the drift, and the ships are destroyed, I will have sent loyal soldiers to their deaths to protect a human world. My political position will be untenable. Vorath will use it to dismantle everything I have built. And if you don't give the order? Then Hale reaches Hadley's Point 2 hours before any help arrives. He bombards the colony. Millions die. The Terran government declares war, and Vorath gets what he wanted anyway. Sounds like you already know what to do. I want to hear you say it. Why? Because you crossed 4 security perimeters to put that chip in my hand. Because you believed I would act. I want to know that you understand the cost. Cole sat up. Torith did not push him back down this time. He swung his legs off the bed and sat facing Salith, his bare feet on the cold floor, his cracked ribs sending pain through his torso with every breath. Give the order, he said. And I will make sure Terran Command knows what your people risked. That matters. Not today, not tomorrow. But when this is over and someone has to decide whether the Velthari are enemies or allies, it will matter. Salith looked at him. His face was swollen. His hands were wrapped in bandages. He was sitting in a medical ward on an alien world, surrounded by people who had been his enemies a decade ago. He was asking her to trust him the same way she was asking Captain Vaeth to trust the drift. She activated her communicator. Captain Vaeth. A pause, static. Then a voice, clear and steady. Empress. I am transmitting new orders. Your battle group is to proceed to Hadley's Point via the Sethran Drift. Maximum possible speed. A longer pause. Empress, the drift is classified as non-navigable. The probability of safe transit is... I am aware of the probability, Captain. Admiral Hale has gone rogue. He is en route to attack a Terran civilian colony. Your battle group is the only force close enough to intercept. Silence on the line. Captain Vaeth, I am not ordering you to do this. I am asking. Do you understand the difference? I do, Empress. Then what is your answer? My answer is that I joined the Imperial fleet to protect people. I did not specify which people. The line went quiet. Then the sound of commands being issued, engines charging, navigation coordinates being entered. Salith lowered her communicator. Cole was looking at her. She said yes, he said. She did. 1 in 4 chance. I heard. That's a 75% chance she makes it. That is a 25% chance she does not. They sat with those numbers in the air between them, solid and heavy, the weight of lives reduced to fractions. You should rest, Salith said. Can't. Why? Because in 6 hours, either your captain makes it through the drift and intercepts hail, or she doesn't, and 14 million people on Hadley's Point wake up to orbital fire. And I plan to be awake for either outcome. Salith pulled her chair closer and sat down. Then we wait together. The next 5 hours passed like something thick and slow, a substance that had to be pushed through rather than moved past. Salith sat in the medical wing with her communicator open. Cole sat on the edge of his bed with his feet on the floor, refusing to lie down. Torith hovered nearby, monitoring readings he did not fully understand and occasionally muttering about the irrationality of human physiology. Reports came in. Fragmentary. Incomplete. Hour 1. Vaeth's battle group entered the Sethran Drift. Communication became sporadic, broken by interference from the compressed space around them. Hour 2. One of the escort ships reported hull stress warnings. Vaeth ordered reduced speed for 30 seconds to let the ship stabilize, then pushed back to maximum. Every second of delay was measured against the distance hail was covering. Hour 3. Contact with Vaeth's group was lost entirely. The drift swallowed all signals. Salith sat with her hands folded in her lap. Cole watched her. Neither spoke. Hour 4. Still no contact. Salith began calculating alternative scenarios. If Vaeth was destroyed in the drift, when the Terran response fleet was still 2 hours behind hail, she needed another option. There were no other options. Hour 5. A signal burst through the static, fragmented, garbled. Torith's medical equipment picked up the interference and displayed it as noise on the monitors. Then, clear as glass, Captain Vaeth's voice filled the room. Empress, battle group has cleared the drift. All ships intact. Minor hull damage to the escort vessel Tirinth. We are 40 minutes from Hadley's Point. Salith's hands tightened in her lap. Hale's position? She asked. We are tracking the Korath. It is 20 minutes from orbital bombardment range. We will intercept with 20 minutes to spare. Cole let out a breath he had been holding for an hour. The monitor beeped at his heart rate dropping from the place it had been living. Captain Vaeth, Salith said. Rules of engagement are as follows. You will hail Admiral Hale and order him to stand down. If he does not comply, you are authorized to use all necessary force to prevent the bombardment of Hadley's Point. All necessary force. Do you understand? Understood, Empress. And Captain? Yes? Thank you. The line stayed open. Over the next 20 minutes, the medical wing became a command center. Torith gave up pretending to do medicine and stood by the wall, listening. 2 more medics appeared in the doorway, then drawn by the sound of fleet communications echoing through the corridor. Cole stood up. Torith looked at him with alarm. Cole ignored it. He stood and walked to the window, a narrow slit of transparent material that looked out over the palace grounds. He could not see the sky from this angle. He looked anyway. Vaeth's voice again. Hailing the Korath now. Static. A response from Hale's ship. This is Admiral Hale. You have no authority to issue orders to my command, and I operate under the mandate of the War Council. The War Council has been dissolved, Admiral, by order of Empress Salith. You are commanded to stand down and return to base. The Empress is compromised. She acts on behalf of the humans, not the Empire. I do not recognize her authority. Admiral, I have 3 warships with weapons locked on your position. I am asking you one more time. Stand down. A long pause. No. The sound of weapons fire came through the communicator. On energy weapons, shield impacts, the sharp static of electronic countermeasures. Salith gripped the armrest of her chair. The engagement lasted 11 minutes. Captain Vaeth narrated in clipped professional fragments. Shields at 60%. The Korath launched fighters. 1 escort frigate disabled. Return fire concentrated on the Korath's weapon systems. 7 minutes in, Hale's 2nd escort frigate broke formation and sent a surrender signal. Its captain had decided that firing on the Empress's loyalist fleet was a bridge too far. 9 minutes in, the Korath's primary weapon array went offline under concentrated fire from Vaeth's flagship. 11 minutes in, Vaeth's voice came through flat and steady. The Korath has been disabled. Admiral Hale is being taken into custody. Hadley's Point is secure. Cole's knees almost gave out again. He caught himself on the window frame. Torith rushed forward. Cole waved him off. Salith lowered her communicator. She placed it on the table beside her. She looked at the wall for a very long time. It's over, Cole said. This part is over, Salith corrected. Vorath is still free. Hale's allies in the outer systems will regroup. The political situation will deteriorate before it improves. But 14 million people are alive right now who would not have been. Yes, that counts. Yes, it counts. She stood. She walked to where Cole was standing by the window. They stood side by side, the alien Empress and the broken human soldier, looking out through a narrow slit at a sky that held stars they had both bled for. What happens now? Cole asked. Now I rebuild my council. Now I send a formal communique to the Terran government detailing what occurred. Now I arrest Vorath, if he has not already fled. And me? You will be treated as a diplomatic guest. You will receive full medical care. You will remain in the palace until you are well enough to travel. I'm well enough to travel now. You collapsed twice in the last 18 hours. Minor setbacks. Salith looked at him. In the pale light of the medical wing, with his face swollen and his hands bandaged and his body held together by stubbornness and field adhesive, he looked like the worst diplomatic guest in the history of interstellar relations. And he also looked exactly like the man who had pulled her from a fire a decade ago. The same jaw, the same set to the shoulders, the same absurd refusal to stay down. Cole. Yeah? When you pulled me from the wreckage on Rethan 4, what were you thinking? That the metal was really hot. I am being serious. So am I. The metal was incredibly hot. My hands hurt for weeks. She waited. He was quiet for a long time. The kind of quiet that is not empty, but full, unloaded with things being chosen and unchosen, words being weighed and discarded. I was thinking that there was a person in there, he said, and that I could reach them. That's all? That's everything. Salith nodded. She turned from the window. Rest now. Please, I have an empire to hold together, and I cannot do it while worrying about whether you are going to topple over and break something else. I don't topple. You toppled onto my throne room steps. That was a controlled descent. She walked to the door. She paused. Cole. Yeah. Vethrun sol mean. The debt of breath cannot be paid in gold. You said that to me earlier. I did. The full proverb continues. Vethrun sol mean, eth varul thren. The debt of breath cannot be paid in gold. It can only be answered in kind. She met his eye. Consider it answered. She left the medical wing. Her footsteps echoed down the corridor, steady and certain, carrying the weight of an empire that was cracking and mending at the same time. Cole Brannock sat on the edge of his bed. He looked at the narrow window. He looked at the alien sky. He looked at his bandaged hands, the same hands that had burned once before for a stranger. Torith appeared beside him with a sedative injector. The Empress has instructed me to ensure you rest. She can instruct all she wants. Torith pressed the injector against his arm. She also instructed me to administer this without asking permission. The sedative hit like a warm tide. Cole had exactly enough time to feel annoyed about it before the world went soft at the edges and sleep pulled him under. He slept. For the first time in days, he slept without dreaming. Across the palace, Salith entered her private chambers and activated her secure terminal. A flashing indicator showed 47 urgent messages from 17 star systems. Fleet commanders wanting orders, diplomats wanting assurances, intelligence officers wanting clearance. And one message from the Terran ambassador. 2 words. Thank you. Salith sat at her terminal and began to work. Outside her window, the twin suns of the Velthari homeworld were rising, recasting long shadows across a palace that had nearly become the birthplace of a genocide. Instead, it had become something else. A turning point. A moment where 2 species, separated by biology and history and a decade of mistrust, had chosen the harder path. The one that required burning your hands. The one that required walking alone through hostile territory. On the one that required sending your ships through a death trap because protecting strangers was the right thing to do, even when the odds were 1 in 4. The suns rose higher. The shadows shortened. The empire turned, slow and massive, toward something it had never been before. And in a medical wing, a human soldier slept on a bed that was too small for him. In a room that was not designed for his species, on a world that was not his own. He had walked in bleeding. He had changed everything. That is what humans do.